Hey everyone. We all think we know the Christmas story, but the Gospel of Luke tells this incredible story behind the story. He does something really clever. He puts two miraculous births right next to each other, John the Baptist and Jesus. So let's dive in and unpack why he does this and what it tells us. So, right off the bat, you have to ask, why start with two births? I promise you, this is no accident. Luke is a master storyteller, and he's setting up this powerful comparison from the very first page. He's basically asking us to look at these two stories together to understand something absolutely crucial about the hero of his gospel. All right, so our journey starts with John the Baptist. His birth is all about fulfilling a promise that the people of Israel had been waiting on for ages. They were expecting a great prophet to come and, prepare the way for the Messiah. Luke presents John as that guy, the forerunner. And his birth story? It's anything but quiet. It is a total public spectacle.
Now, to really get this story, you gotta understand the culture back then. This was not a private family moment. As Dr. Darko puts it here, in these kinds of cultures, everybody is in everybody else's business. A birth was a huge community event. You've got neighbors, relatives, everyone's involved, and that means a ton of social pressure.
And this is where the drama really kicks in. The whole community just assumes the baby will be named Zachariah, after his dad. That's the tradition. But his parents, Elizabeth and Zachariah, they've been given a direct, and let's be honest, kind of weird command from God. His name is John. And right there, you see this massive clash, human tradition versus a divine command.
Luke is so careful here. He's basically laying out a checklist of promises. He shows us 5 specific things an angel tells John's father, Zachariah. And then he walks us through, step by step, showing how every single one comes true. It all leads to this incredible climax, where Zachariah, who'd been struck mute this whole time, finally writes, his name is John. And boom, he can speak again. And the second he gets his voice back, what does he do? He doesn't just celebrate, he prophesies. He confirms his son's incredible destiny. He makes it crystal clear. John isn't the main event. He is the essential opening act, the one who will prepare the way for the Lord. And that sets the stage perfectly for what's coming next. Okay, so now we pivot to the second birth, Jesus, the humble king. After that grand public arrival for John, Luke creates this deliberate and honestly shocking contrast. The story of Jesus doesn't begin with some local village drama. It begins on a global stage, but in the absolute humblest of circumstances. I mean, just look at this when you lay them side by side. The contrast is stunning. John's birth is a local affair, celebrated by neighbors and family. But Jesus' birth? It's set in motion by an imperial decree from the Roman emperor. The audience changes from relatives to shepherds and a host of angels. And the message? It explodes from a promise for Israel to good news for all people. The scale just completely shifts. And this is so important. Luke isn't telling us a once-upon-a-time fairy tale. He drops this divine event right into our world. He names the emperor, Caesar Augustus. He mentions a census. He's making a really profound point. The story of God is not separate from human history. It broke into our specific, messy, political world at a very particular time and place. Now, to be fair, Luke's historical details have sparked a lot of debate. Historians point to something called the Quirinius problem, where other ancient records seem to place this specific census about 10 years after Jesus was born. It's a bit of a historical puzzle, for sure. But here's the thing. For Luke, maybe getting the exact date perfect wasn't the main point. As this analysis from Dr. Darko suggests, Luke's primary goal was theological. He needed to get Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem. Why? Because that was the historic hometown of King David, and Luke had to show that Jesus was the long-prophesied king from David's royal line. So they finally get there, to the city of the great King David. And the irony is just staggering. The promised king of the universe, the heir to the throne, shows up and immediately faces a housing crisis. No room at the inn. His first bed isn't some royal crib. It's a manger, an animal's feeding trough. Luke is screaming at us. This is a king born into poverty and humility from his very first breath. So who gets the memo? Who gets the divine birth announcement for this new king? Does it go to the priests in the temple? Nope. The Roman officials? Not a chance. Luke tells us the news was delivered 100% to shepherds, the working poor, the people on the absolute lowest rung of the social ladder. And we're not talking about a quiet little note here. This was a full-on celestial event. An angel just appears out of nowhere, the glory of the Lord shines all around them, and they are, as you'd expect, terrified. Then a whole army of angels shows up and starts singing. This spectacular, supernatural moment doesn't happen in a palace. It happens in a field for an audience of outcasts.
Okay, so let's put the two pieces of the puzzle together. By telling these two stories back to back, Luke is getting ready for his big reveal. He's showing us exactly who this king is and what kind of kingdom he's bringing with him. You know, the best way to see what Luke is up to is to put his story right next to the one in the Gospel of Matthew. In Matthew, you have these powerful, wealthy wise men, the Magi, who bring the news to the actual king, Herod. But in Luke, angels bring the news to powerless shepherds. The contrast could not be more intentional or more powerful. And this is what it all boils down to. This is Luke's core message. He is deliberately elevating the humble, the poor, the marginalized. He's showing us that God's plan isn't just for the people at the top, but it's especially for the outcasts. He's introducing a kingdom of reversals, a whole new way of seeing the world where the entire social order gets flipped on its head, and the last are now first. So, in the end, John's birth, with all of its public drama and prophecy, it's the perfect opening act. It's loud, it gets everyone's attention. But Jesus' birth, quiet, humble, announced to shepherds in a field, that's the world-changing main event. And that just leaves us with this one last thought. Luke shows us that the way a story begins tells you everything you need to know about its hero. By starting not in a palace, but in a manger, and not with kings, but with shepherds, Luke is forcing every single one of us to ask, what does real power and real salvation actually look like?